Вчера Дима, мой муж, сделал мне такое предложение, после которого нужно бежать без оглядки, а не продолжать разыгрывать счастливый брак. Широта его души и размах всегда поражали воображение. Сейчас же они именно мне выходят боком. Выслушав пламенную речь супруга, я сделала один главный вывод. Пора собирать вещи и уходить к маме. «Спасибо, милый, это так трогательно и романтично», — ошеломленно произнесла я, прижимая к себе огромный авторский букет. «Сегодня 3 сентября, годовщина нашей свадьбы. 5 лет совместной жизни. Я календарь переверну, и снова 3 сентября». Пропел благоверный поставленным голосом. «С деревянной свадьбой, родная. Дерево — это символ плодородия, надежности и благополучия. Наша семья уже прочно пустила корни в этой жизни. Пусть они растут и крепнут. Я целиком и полностью согласна, дорогой». Тряхнула я головой. «Ты у меня самый лучший в мире муж, о котором только можно мечтать». Дима преподнес мне свой главный подарок. Серьги в виде веточек. Золото олицетворяло дерево. Мой подарок был куда скромнее. Новая беспроводная колонка. Тем не менее, подарок пришелся мужу по душе. Он с чувством меня поцеловал. Со стороны все это не вызывало абсолютно никакой тревоги. Эдакая иллюзия гармоничной семейной жизни. А нет, все гораздо сложнее, если не сказать грустнее. Димка всегда очень любил пускать людям пыль в глаза. Это у него состояние души такое. Моя мама, она преподает историю в школе, по-своему трактовала поступки Димы. «Как же твой муж любит гусарить? Это же просто уму непостижимо. Виктория, ты же бухгалтер. Научи своего благоверного направлять деньги в правильное русло. Не ровен час пойдете по миру с такой ярмаркой неслыханной расточительности. Разве тебе не понравилась швейная машинка?» – удивилась я. Дима старался, выбирал ее с душой. Всех продавцов-консультантов на уши поставил в магазине. Моя мама – страстная поклонница шитья. Она с самого моего детства шила мне шикарные наряды, в которых я блистала на утренниках в детском саду, на вечеринках в школе. А на выпускном балу меня вообще единодушно признали королевой вечера. «Машинка отличная, вопросов нет», — ответила мама. «Но мне кажется, все эти Димкины штучки не очень хорошо отражаются на финансовой стороне вашей семейной жизни. Вы хоть питаетесь нормально?» «Да все у нас хорошо, мамуля», — кивнула я. «Ты не переживай. И вообще, твой Дима думает развиваться или нет?» — строго спросила мама. «Прости меня, Вика, но фотограф — это какая-то не очень убедительная профессия. Если это вообще профессия». Конечно, очень сложно объяснить человеку старые закалки, которым мама является, что Дима не только фотограф. Он еще и блогер, и дизайнер, и рекламный креативщик. Короче говоря, свободный художник, который носится по городу в вечных поисках заказов. Мы и познакомились-то с ним благодаря фотоаппарату. В один из вечеров я возвращалась домой с работы и увидела, как симпатичный высокий молодой человек снимает голубей. Он предварительно крошил им булку. Голуби слетались на угощение. Парень отходил на несколько шагов, затем делал снимки с различных ракурсов. Я любовалась на это трогательное зрелище и собралась была идти своей дорогой, как услышала голос. «Девушка, можно вас на 1 секунду?» Это был тот самый симпатичный фотограф, что запечатлевал пернатых. «Что вы хотели?» – спросила я. «Мне вообще-то некогда. А у вас, я смотрю, работы не впроворот. Будьте осторожны. Голуби доели булку и вот-вот улетят». «С птицами на сегодня все», – рассмеялся парень. «Они слопали свой гонорар в виде булки и могут быть свободными. Теперь меня очень интересуете вы». «Звучит довольно тревожно», – парировала я. «Что именно вы хотели от моей скромной персоны?» «У вас такой шикарный типаж», – похвалил меня фотограф. «Это такая смесь славянской и скандинавской красоты, словно слились воедино княгиня Ольга и Брунгильда, королева Исландии». «Дело в моих косах», – кивнула я головой. «Поэтому я и похожа на скандинавскую женщину. На комплимент все равно засчитан, спасибо». «А у Ольги Брунгильды есть имя?» – спросил парень. «Я Дмитрий. Как Маликов или Донской». Я отметила про себя, что парень очень любит сравнения с какими-то известными личностями. «Виктория, как королева Англии», – со смехом отозвалась я, невольно вливаясь в игру. «Так какое у вас ко мне дело?» «Мне очень хотелось бы вас сфотографировать», – признался Дмитрий. «Ваше фото непременно бы украсило мою фотовыставку, что я запланировал в ближайшее время». От такой высокой чести я отказалась, но разрешила сделать пару снимков напротив живописного пруда, в котором плавали утки. Дмитрий попросил мой номер телефона. Куда-то же я должен отправить фото. Конечно, это был довольно хитрый ход, но я все же продиктовала Дмитрию свои цифры. Если честно, он зацепил меня своим чувством юмора и обаянием. Фото пришли на следующий день. Дима был действительно фотографом, что говорится, от Бога. Я перезвонила ему и поблагодарила за прекрасные снимки. В ответ я получила такое предложение. «Виктория, а как вы относитесь к живописи?» «Совершенно никак не отношусь. Я бухгалтер», – рассмеялась я. «Но если нарисовано красиво и правдоподобно, то положительно. Тогда я приглашаю вас на выставку столичного художника, Камышлянского. Там я буду по работе. Заодно мы с вами приобщимся к прекрасному», – ответил Дима. «Сегодня вечером в 19 часов сможете?» Я согласилась. После выставки мы посидели в кафе, поужинали. Дмитрий рассказал, что ведет несколько блогов, создает рекламу и много еще чем занимается. «На вашем фоне я смотрюсь просто серой мышкой», – ответила я. «Работаю скромным бухгалтером. Прихожу в 9, ухожу в 6 часов вечера. В свободное время читаю или смотрю телевизор. Вот такая у меня неинтересная жизнь». «О, это очень легко исправить», – успокоил меня Дима. «В эту субботу приглашаю тебя на пикник. Ты ведь не против, что мы перешли на «ты»? И пикника тоже». Я не сумела устоять перед напором Дмитрия. Как и договаривались, в субботу мы отправились на озеро в компании Диминых друзей. Сплошь и рядом музыкантов, художников и модных блогеров. «Диман, зачетный спортивный костюм», – похвалил Диму плечистый брюнет с внешностью Антонио Бандераса. «Почем брал?» Услышав сумму, которую Дима потратил на костюм, я немного опешила. Это ж какой у него доход, если он выкатывает за спортивный костюм треть моей зарплаты? Однако не в моих правилах считать чужие деньги. Получается у человека зарабатывать своей головой. Остается только искренне за него порадоваться. Этот веселый пикник послужил трамплином к началу наших отношений, которые довольно быстро переросли в любовь. Дима водил меня по всевозможным мероприятиям, где он снимал в свой блог, либо просто фотографировал. Он всегда был одет с иголочки, очень уважал настоящие брендовые вещи, за которые платил солидные деньги. На фоне него я смотрелась довольно бледно. Одевалась я довольно строго, скажем так, посредством. Зарплата у меня неплохая, но деньги я тратила разумно. Так уж родители меня воспитали. «Вика, это тебе». Как-то протянул мне Дима красивую упаковку. «Надень его сегодня вечером». Вроде бы я не ошибся с размером. У фотохудожника глаз алмаз. Я развернула упаковку и просто обомлела. Это было самое настоящее вечернее платье. Интересно, что за мероприятие он затеял сегодня? Оказалось, Дима забронировал столик в самом дорогом ресторане нашего города. Тот субботний вечер я запомнила на всю жизнь. Играл тихий джаз. Дмитрий заказал настолько много деликатесов, что стол буквально ломился от изобилия. Впрочем, я и не сомневалась в его щедрости. А внезапно к нам подошли музыканты и заиграли какую-то романтическую мелодию. Дмитрий медленно встал, подошел ко мне и извлек из кармана футляр, раскрыл его. На бархате лежало кольцо очень редкой красоты. Он надел его мне на палец и произнес: «Любимая Виктория, выходи за меня замуж». Словно в голливудских фильмах. Зал замер в ожидании. Все-таки Димка умеет создать атмосферу. Этого у него не отнять. «Да», — выдохнула я. «Я согласна». В зале раздались бурные аплодисменты. Я действительно чувствовала себя главной героиней какой-то мелодрамы. Настолько все было красиво и торжественно. На следующий день Дима повел меня знакомиться с мамой, Региной Сергеевной. Та мне показалась очень славным человеком, очень добрым, гостеприимным. Единственный момент, который меня немного насторожил, это был тихий разговор, который я услышала в кухне. Я как раз вышла в коридор поправить прическу и стала невольно его свидетельницей. «Дима, ну сколько можно тянуть из меня деньги?» – спросила Регина тихим шепотом. «Если уж дела идут не совсем хорошо, найди себе более земную работу в офисе, как другие люди. Получается так, что ты живешь в долг. Кредиты, займы, долги – это неправильно». «Ну что ты, мамуля, тебе кажется», – ответил Дима. «Свой долг перед тобой я помню. Деньги верну на той неделе. И умоляю, не говори ничего Виктории. Это может ее смутить, понимаешь?» Я прошмыгнула обратно в зал, делая вид, что ничего не слышала. Регина и Дима вернулись через 5 минут, улыбаясь. Мне не хотелось делать акцент на услышанном. Мало ли у кого какие трудности возникают с деньгами. А зря. Потом все это аукнулось так, что мало не показалось. Моей маме Дима тоже пришелся по душе. Но ее очень смущал расточительный характер моего жениха. Эдакое фанфаронство. Если Дима что-то дарил, то с шиком, блеском, красотой, тут же очаровывая и располагая к себе. После свадьбы мы стали снимать квартиру. С родителями жить совершенно не хотелось. Да, они бы и не поняли стремительный ритм нашей жизни. На выходные едем в горы. Мог сказать мне в пятницу Дима. Там намечается клевая вечеринка. Ее просто невозможно пропустить. Я сама стала понемногу вливаться в стиль мужа. Стала одеваться более ярко, модно, со вкусом. За это ему низкий поклон, конечно. Однако меня все больше и больше настораживал тот факт, что Дима скачет с кредита на кредит, как кузнечик. Это, конечно, было очень ощутимо для нашего семейного бюджета. Выходило так, что мы с мужем поменялись ролями. Я, словно локомотив, тянула на себе весь быт. Оплату квартиры, покупку продуктов и прочих необходимых для жизни вещей. Дима же, получая деньги, гасил кредиты, влезал в новые долги, чтобы в очередной раз приобрести себе новый ноутбук для работы, либо кроссовки от известного бренда обуви. Я все намеревалась поговорить с мужем, что так жить нехорошо и неправильно. Это тупиковая ветвь развития. Но только я выберу момент для беседы как раз, Дима дарит мне шикарные духи или билеты в театр. Разумеется, я смягчаюсь и тут же забываю о беседе. На 6-м году нашей развеселой и увлекательной жизни я поняла, что жду ребенка. Раз это произошло, стоит моему благоверному стать взрослее, не совершать опрометчивых поступков, погасить все свои долги, зарабатывать на нужды малыша. «Конечно, родная, даже не сомневайся», — ответил мне муж, услышав радостную новость. «У меня долгов почти не осталось. Так, по мелочи раскидать и готово. А затем буду упорно трудиться, ведь малышу нужно много чего купить. Петька с Аней недавно стали родителями. Рассказали, во сколько им обошлось такое удовольствие появления малыша. Я немного успокоилась. Мне не хотелось сомневаться в искренности мужа. Однако время шло, а Дима, что говорится, не чесался. В доме не появилось ни кроватки, как мы договорились, ни коляски, ни прочих погремушек и игрушек. «Дима, в чем дело? Ты же обещал мне с подготовкой к появлению малыша». Как-то раз задала я вопрос мужу. Ответ меня поразил до глубины души. «Дорогая, в декрет не выходи. Продолжай работать, мне долги погасить нужно», — заявил мне муж. «Отличная новость», — усмехнулась я. «Ты же мне клялся, что все долги почти погашены. Или я чего-то не знаю? Ты расскажи сразу, на берегу». Дима повесил голову и задрал рукав. На его запястье блеснули очень красивые часы. Странно, я их раньше не видела. Я небольшой эксперт по часам, но было заметно, что они невероятно дорогие. «Милый», — пропела я елейным голосом. «Это то, что я подумала? Опять пускаешь пыль в глаза своим друзьям и подписчикам? Хочешь казаться тем, кем совершенно не являешься? Сколько стоит этот аксессуар?» Услышав сумму, я схватилась за голову. «Да он год будет гасить кредит за этот хронометр. А Вика, не выходи в декрет. Нет, хватит, пора закрывать этот балаганчик. Наверное, самым правильным будет нам расстаться», — сказала я, тщательно все обдумав и взвесив. «Не стоит строить иллюзий, Дима. Ты не готов стать отцом. Все деньги у тебя будут уходить на дутые понты. Извини за выражение. Мне нужен надежный мужчина, а не такой ветреный павлин, как ты». Дима затеял очень убедительную речь, что все будет хорошо. Но я и слушать этого не стала. В тот же вечер перебралась к маме. У меня родилась чудесная дочка. Я назвала ее Сашенькой. Мама изо всех сил мне помогает. Дима же выплачивает деньги, как положено. Он очень хочет вернуть все на прежние места. Но я категорически против. Мне очень не хочется видеть в качестве супруга мужчину с таким детским мышлением.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. "Probably Sam." Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted. dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.